4.2 trigonometric functions. We're continuing to use the unit circle. The unit circle is a circle with a radius of 1 centered at the origin. Its equation is x squared plus y squared equals 1. So we have this drawing of the unit circle starting at 1, 0, making a turn of a certain number of degrees or radians, and we're going to call that angle of that turn t, and we're going to land at a point on the circle called P, which has coordinates x, y. So there are 6 trigonometric functions. The first 3 are sine, cosine, and tangent. The sine of an angle is its y coordinate. The cosine of an angle is its x coordinate. The tangent of an angle is y divided by x, where x is not equal to 0, otherwise it would be undefined. Or you could also think about it as sine divided by cosine. So before we move into the next 3 trigonometric functions, let's think about what this means for, say, a 90-degree turn. And remember, positive turns are going to go counterclockwise. So we always start at 1, 0. So if someone said to you, find the sine of a 90-degree turn, a 90-degree turn would take you to here because it's a right angle, and the sine is the y coordinate, so it's 1. So the sine of 90 degrees is 1. If you were asked for the cosine of 90 degrees, turn counterclockwise 90 degrees, the cosine is the x coordinate, so it's 0. If someone asked you for the tangent of the 90-degree turn, it would be y divided by x, and that would be undefined. Now, an interesting thing about tangents is that you can also think about them as the slope of the line. So notice that this point is on a vertical line, and a vertical line has an undefined slope. So the tangent of 90 degrees would also be undefined. Our 3 other trigonometric functions are cosecant, secant, and cotangent. The cosecant is 1 over y, where y is not 0. The secant is 1 over x, where x is not 0. And the cotangent of the turn, t, is x over y, where y is not 0. So really, these 3 trigonometric functions are just reciprocals of the first 3. So if you take the reciprocal of the sine, you get the cosecant. If you take the reciprocal of the cosine, you get the secant. If you take the reciprocal of the tangent, you get the cotangent. So you can also think about cosecant as 1 over the sine, secant as 1 over the cosine, and cotangent as cosine over sine. Now, if you have a figure like this with some turn, and it lands you at the location radical 3 over 2, comma 1/2, and you want to find the 6 trigonometric functions, well, the sine would just be the y coordinate, 1/2. The cosine is the x coordinate, radical 3 over 2. The tangent is y divided by x, and remember when you divide fractions, you have to flip and multiply, so it will be 1/2 times 2 over radical 3. And the 2's will end up canceling out, and you'll have 1 over radical 3. But you never want to leave a radical in the bottom of a fraction. So you do that thing called rationalizing the denominator, where you multiply the top and bottom by radical 3, because radical 3 times radical 3 is 3. And then 1 times radical 3 is radical 3. Now, for the cosecant is 1 over y. So it's 1 divided by 1/2, which is just 2. The secant is 1 over x, or in other words, it's the reciprocal of the cosine. So it's 2 over radical 3, but then rationalize your denominator, and you'll get 2 radical 3 over 3. And the cotangent is just x over y, So take radical 3 over 2 divided by 1/2, which turns into radical 3 over 2 times 2, which is radical 3. Or you can just take the reciprocal of the tangent, and that would be radical 3. In the next problem, we want to find, using the figure, the values of the trigonometric functions where t is equal to pi. So this is what it's going to look like. Pi is equal to 180 degrees, as we said in the last lesson. So when we turn 180 degrees, or pi radians, we end up at the location -1, 0. So the sine of pi is going to be the y-coordinate, which is 0. The cosine is going to be the x-coordinate, which is -1. The tangent is going to be y divided by x, or you can think of it as sine divided by cosine, which is just 0. And once again, another way to think of tangent is the slope of the line. If you have a horizontal line and your point is on a horizontal line, the slope of the horizontal line is 0. The cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine. So if the sine is 0, the cosecant would be 1 divided by 0, which is undefined. The secant is the reciprocal of the cosine. So it would be 1 divided by -1, or -1. And the cotangent would be the reciprocal of the tangent, which is 1 divided by 0, which is undefined.